Hello, my name is Amanda Lind. I work for Blue Marble Geographics. Today I'm going to teach you how to create a subclassification in your point cloud. Creating a subclassification is a new feature in Global Mapper version 25.1. A subclassification is a type of classification that's nested underneath an existing classification. So it's when you want to add further information to your classifications without subtracting any of the functionality. For example, if you wanted to create a DTM layer made of completely ground points, but you also wanted to include not only the bare ground, but also low vegetation or sidewalks or roads, you wanted to keep all of those extra classifications in, but you want them to be treated as ground without having to do all the extra work. I'll show you what that looks like here in Global Mapper, and it'll make a little bit more sense. So I have this data loaded here just of downtown Augusta. I've displayed it by intensity so we can see that the road values do exist. We have little roads and we have little sidewalks, and you can see their different intensity values here. But when I change to color by classification, the automatic ground classification tool sees them as ground points because they're flat. And to create a digital terrain model for them, I want them to continue to be treated as ground points, but in the classifications, I want to be able to see them separately and have the option to use them separately in different points. So I'm going to create an additional subclassification to identify the road points. Now, a subclassification in Global Mapper is a function of the custom classification tool. If you're unfamiliar with this process, go ahead and click on the link either in the description or somewhere in the video to find another Ask the Experts video that'll walk you through how that process works. The first step of creating a custom classification is typically to segment your data. I'll color this by segment here so we can see what that looks like. It isn't a required step, but it's heartily encouraged, as if a feature is different enough from its neighbors that it's able to be segmented, then it's more than likely is going to respond well to a custom classification. But if you can't segment it, it might not respond well to the custom classification. That, and it makes selecting the clusters to train the custom classification tool with a lot easier if it's already segmented. For more information on that, you can look at this geometric segmentation option here. And looking at the data as we were earlier, we could see that the roads were mostly different from their neighbors based on intensity values. They're still flat, and they still have a lot of the other normal characteristics and curvature characteristics of the surrounding points. So we looked at intensity to segment this data so the roads are separate from the surrounding features. So first, to create a custom classification, I'm going to check the box to enable custom feature models here in the automatic point cloud analysis tool that I've opened from this icon here. And that's going to do two things. It's going to open this training samples window, and it's going to give us the option to add a class. So first I'm going to go ahead and add a class. I'm making a road classification here, so that is what I'm going to name it. And because road is an existing ASPRS definition, when I click away, it's going to go ahead and rename it to the default class ID, which just happens to be 11 for roads. Otherwise, if it were a new label that weren't already included in a description, it would have kept the class ID as 54. And we'll see where that is applicable later in this workflow. So next, we want to tell Global Mapper what type of points we want this custom classification to look for. And we're going to do that by training it based on existing points. So I'm going to select points from this point cloud to train the software with. There are two different options here. There's the digitizer, which is selected by default, so you can select individual points. A lot of selecting, so instead I'm going to use the segment select and select segments of points. It doesn't really matter how many you select. I'm going to hold the control key down on my keyboard to select multiple at a time. So it doesn't matter how many you select or how many samples you get, because Global Mapper processes them all at the same time. They're put all in the same bin. So I've selected a bit of a subsample here. You might want to get as much as you can, especially if you're processing with multiple point clouds, to give Global Mapper the most information possible to train your custom classification with. So after you're finished collecting, you'll click Collect Sample, and Global Mapper is going to look at the signature of the point cloud, so the attributes and the physical structure to make a fingerprint, if you will, of what these points represent so we can identify these features in the point cloud. Once it's classified the signature unbound, you can choose which class to apply it to. So I'm going to choose road. And now we have the ability to come over here and train the point cloud. And this is going to apply that signature to this classification tool. And if you come back later and select more points to further train or further specify your classification, it will just add your selected points to the existing bin when you hit train. So you can kind of perpetually add on and train and continue to narrow down and make that a little bit better. But now that we've trained the classification, we can see that it has appeared as an option down here in our classification section. So I'm going to go ahead and classify these points in the point cloud, or I'll show you how it's done. You just check the points, check the box. You can see that the options will come up here, so you can edit them if you want to, but I'll scroll back down so we can look at the classifications, and you'll click Classify Features. But to save time, I've gone ahead and already brought up a finished version. So let me enable that, and we color by classification, and we can see that these road points here are now classified as roads separate from ground, and they're colored as gray. And we can see that in two different ways, more or less. I'm going to grab the Feature Info tool, this little gray super eye icon here, and I can click on a ground point, which happens to be brown, and we can see that the classification is 2. And then we can compare that to a road point and see that the classification is 11. Now, say that you wanted to change the color of your custom classification or of any classification. That can be done from the configuration dialog. So I'm going to click on this wrench icon. I'm going to go down to the LiDAR section. And here you can see all of the classifications currently in Global Mapper. So the built-in ones are the default by ASPRS definition, but we also have these reserved for sections which are built for you to use to your own data needs. To change the name or to change the color, you'll find your classification here in this list. You'll right-click, so you can choose Set Class Name or Set Class Color to choose and change your settings to be represented in this point cloud. And these will be saved to your workspace for future use. For more information on point cloud subclassifications, visit our website at bluemarblegeo.com. And if you have any questions, contact our technical support team at geohelp@bluemarblegeo.com. Thank you.